Are you formatting your own books when publishing to Amazon KDP and other self-publishing platforms? Did you know formatting your interiors is much more complicated than typing your manuscript in Microsoft Word and then hitting publish? Then it's time you learn some of the most common mistakes I've seen self-published authors doing that makes their books look amateurish and subconsciously turns off readers. Because most of these problems have varied solutions based on the software you're using, I'll have to send most of you to Google. For now, I'll just reference Microsoft Word since that was the software I used when starting in this business. Now, let's look at the 10 most common problems and solutions for each. Problem number 1, left aligning text. All right, there are rare occasions that you should be going and using left alignment for your text within a book. In most instances, you want to lean in favor of justified text. So there's left aligned text, which is where most software is going to default to for a left aligning. But that's good for, say, high school reports or emailing your best friend or something like that. Right alignment is obviously going to be the opposite of that. Now, the other one is justifying the text, which means it goes from one margin to the next. So it fills it out. It's a little bit more pleasing to the eye, and it gets it to where it gives a more pleasant experience for the readers. Problem number 2, block paragraph versus first line indent. Okay, so we have block paragraphs, which is exactly what you would think. And after each one of those block paragraphs, in order to make it where it doesn't look like it's a wall of text, you want to have some type of separation between each one of those. And then you have the other types of paragraphs, which is going to be the first line indentation, which a lot of us are probably pretty used to here in the United States. And in those instances where you're doing a first line indentation, you do not need to have a separation between these two things. In fact, I think I actually learned this one from Mark Coker over at Smashwords. It was early on and I was having some issues because I was doing the first line indentation, but I also wanted to have some type of separation between each one of those paragraphs, and he was informing me, hey, look, you don't need to do the separation because the indentation breaks up that wall of text and it gets it to where it's more readable. And that's the whole thing. A lot of these tips you're going to learn is where it creates a better reader experience. Problem number 3, placing elements near the gutter for print books. Okay, so this one is just for print books. Obviously, on e-readers, you don't have a gutter. A gutter is the space right here in the middle of the book, okay? So it's where the actual folds of the paper are coming together. And so that is an area that you don't want to have any print elements at or near. The closest thing you're going to want to have is in the inside margins, and you don't want to have anything further to that. I would recommend that if you ever have anything like footers or headers, don't put it in the inside, because then you're going to run into issues that people are going to have problems reading that. It's okay to have it centered, it's okay to put it on the outside, but putting in the inside, it looks really weird, and it can also get chopped off when you're getting it printed out, and it's going to get stuck in that gutter, and people are going to have to fold or increase their book, and it's just going to be an unpleasant experience for everybody. Problem number 4, table of contents with no page numbers in print. Yes, I wish I could be making this one up. Look, folks, what's the point of having a table of contents in your print book if it's merely numbers? Yes, I've seen a top-selling author, an indie author, that had inside his print book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It was almost like he just focused on putting the ebook together and said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and take the ebook version and make it into a print book. Remove them, all right? It's a waste of space. It only confuses readers and browsing customers. So look, folks, it's really dead simple. Just take it out if you're not going to use it. I totally understand if you're like, okay, I'm doing a fiction book. There's no reason for anybody to have to look up the chapter because I don't name my chapters. That's fine. But if you're going to put a table of contents in place, put the page numbers there as well. Problem number 5, table of contents with no link inside ebooks. Okay, so we had some issues with table of contents with the print books. Now we also have it with ebooks. It's a very simple solution here, folks, because in most instances, a lot of software out there actually has automated table of contents, like Microsoft Word. Other software actually has it baked directly into it, like Atticus, Vellum, Scrivener, and so on. Problem number 6, widows and orphans. Okay, so this is one I learned very early on in 2013, before I even published my first book. Widows are essentially a single line at the end of a paragraph that starts at the top of a page. It just looks weird, and it also, you're losing some of the context from within that paragraph by having a single line starting on another page or on another column. Now, Orphans is a little bit different. It's a single word on the last line of a paragraph. And I know it doesn't seem like it's that much of a big deal, but visually speaking, it creates a jarring experience for the reader, and you want to make it as smooth as possible when they're reading your book. Now, there's a lot of different programs out there that actually will mitigate some widows and orphans, but some of them, it's not quite 100%. That's why typesetters, those that actually format interiors for books, are paid the big bucks, because then they get to have to worry about fixing those things with widows and orphans. Problem number 7, start every chapter on the right side or the odd-numbered pages. Yep, this is kind of a weird one, and I think you can probably Google it up and you'll see a lot of explanations to it. You don't want to start any of your chapters on the left side. From what I'm understanding, it establishes a predictable flow for the reader. So you're going to have the title page on the right-hand side and an odd number page. You're going to have your copyright page on the right side of the page. You're going to have your table of contents, so on and so forth. Now, I understand that this is not a hard and fast rule, because many of you are probably looking to save money, and by having it to where you can kind of minimize the number of pages that go into your print-on-demand book really will help it out to where you're not having to increase your cost, so that way more readers can kind of buy it. But it's going to be ultimately up to your taste. What I would recommend is at least starting the first chapter on the right-hand side on an odd-numbered page. Problem number 8, not embedding unorthodox fonts. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of traditional fonts that are being used through a lot of print-on-demand companies. The likes of Times New Roman, Calibri, those type of things, because they are recognized by those programs. But when you start to find these really weird and rare fonts online and using them, it's going to get lost. You're going to upload your PDF for your print book, and Amazon's going to go, I don't know what to do this, or Barnes & Noble's going to go, what is this font? So the very first thing I'm going to tell you to do is check licensing on the font that you're using. Some are actually only intended for personal use. And you also want to make sure that that font is available for commercial use. Now, you know this because if you go to download a font on a specific site, it will give you some type of a README file or a license of some sort that gives you permission to utilize that font. In most instances, I try to tell people, look folks, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Try to find the best, most typically used font within inside your niche, and then build it off from there. You don't need to have some really weird old English looking font or some scratch art looking font. I know it seems artistic, but sometimes it's just going to get lost in the shuffle, but you can always just embed them so long as it's available for commercial use. Problem number 9, graphic heavy images on thin paper. Oh, I have violated this one a time or two, or many times before. If you have a lot of images within your book, keep in mind that a lot of print-on-demand companies are using fairly thin paper, between 50 to 60 pound paper. And that paper is not meant to withstand a lot of ink being put onto it. So it's going to warp those pages, and when it's printed out, sure, your readers are going to still be able to read it, but there's going to be some out there that are going to go, why is my book all like waterlogged? Why is it looking all wavy and such? If you're going to use very heavy images, first of all, it depends on if you're using full color or you're using black and white. If you're going into black and white, make sure that you change your full color images into something that's grayscale, and then increase the brightness just a little bit. And this is where I tell people to proof your books before you go and publish them, because you want to see how it actually looks when it's all said and done. Now, for full color, you're going to want to maybe kick back the saturation just slightly and a little bit slightly on the contrast. Now, this is going to vary from one publication to the next. Again, proof whatever you have. Problem number 10, no headers or footers for print books. Look, I understand this is inessential for ebooks unless you have something that's going to be a fixed layout, which I don't recommend for a lot of you authors out there. Just stick to the reflowable type content for ebooks. Now, for print books, I would really recommend that you look into doing headers and footers, meaning that you have the title of your book and your author name, or even say the chapter name, and of course your page numbers. So make sure that you are getting some headers and footers inside your print books because it looks so much more professional. Now, is it mandatory? No, but I would highly recommend that you at least put in the page numbers. Yes, I've seen some people out there that don't have page numbers in there. It's legitimately insane, and if you do that, just stop doing it. Speaking of formatting books, believe it or not, I did a little bit of a speed run with a company called Formatted Books. You're going to want to make sure you take a look at this because, boy, I did some silly things. I'll see you on over there.